The Chinese yuan was pegged to the US dollar, resulting in the intentional maintenance of the exchange rate. This allows for predictability in trade. Currency needed to be printed in order for this to happen. The government in China would have to allow the currency to flee from the country and be converted into foreign currencies, such as the US dollar. This is an attempt by China at exporting their inflation. In recent years, we've heard the claims that China is a currency manipulator, fueling the fire on this threatening currency war, which we have been caught in the middle of. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. Today we have two major topics, and one of those being the yuan hitting an 8-year low versus the US dollar. This has been a currency war which has been going on now for years and years, and this is very important to discuss and to track as time goes on. Let's begin with this first, though. Austerity-racked Greece could strike a deal with its creditors by early next year, a senior EU official said. And this is all because of what has happened recently with the premier saying that he's hiked spending for pensioners. What you have in Greece is austerity measures, and these austerity measures are a deal. And that deal was basically, will give you a bailout if you commit to these austerity measures. And here we have Greece doing the exact opposite, increasing the spending. This has been an ongoing problem back and forth between Greece and the EU and the IMF and everyone else, saying that you can't have this spending. You have too much debt at this time, that the GDP ratios are off the charts, and you have to fix that. And you have to go by our plans and our schedules, and that's just the way it is. But this here doesn't really go well for Athens, for Greece, and you can see all the protests that have taken place over the years. I don't agree with the austerity measures that are in place. There are good levels of austerity, good things that I believe. However, those good things never ever happen. The government will never spend less money on something that it deems to be essential. Like, for example, in the US with the NSA. They're not going to spend less money collecting the data of all the citizens, but they'll spend less money on things where people need it the most. It's just the way it is. We're always getting the short end of the stick. So let's move on to this here. Looking at Ukraine, they actually nationalized the country's biggest bank, who right here it says has 1/3 of the deposits in the country. So it's a huge bank in relation to the Ukraine. They did this in order to avert financial meltdown. This was something that should teach us a lesson about what could happen in our own countries. Whether you're in the UK or Australia or Canada, the US, nationalize the banking system or individual banks is something that has happened before and could happen once again. This is a last-ditch effort. This is that understanding, essentially, that any deposit insurance is, in fact, a lie, because they only hold a fraction of the reserves, and there's no way that they could ever actually insure the deposits. It's a fraud. But here we are. And this right here, you have, once again, the criminal organization, the IMF, demanding Ukraine clean up and stabilize its murky financial sector in order to achieve substantial growth or sustainable growth. Think about the IMF, all the policies implied by these supranational entities and how they exact their dominance over these countries. They're able to dominate each and every one of them And they do so because they dangle that carrot in front of their eyes. Look, you want a bailout? You want some help? You want some funding? Here it is. Just keep running. Just keep going. Just keep following orders. Nationalize the banking system is a very big problem in my opinion, because that allows the government to have even more control over a sector that is already basically controlled by the government in any country around the world. Look at Goldman Sachs, how they have their hands in basically all the highest positions of power. Geithner, in a book, said the U.S. considered nationalizing the banks. We're looking back in the pages of the history just a few years ago, as you see the financial crisis, what had happened, the banks looking very weak, and here they are, the government saying that they were about to nationalize the banks. Why? Why couldn't they just use the deposit insurance? Why couldn't they just commit to the bailout that they did? Well, because that wasn't enough. Bailing out the system the way they did it wasn't sufficient, and they were about to collapse. They said, maybe we'll nationalize it. That is, in fact, siege. It's a takeover. And you're looking at corporations which are supposed to be independent, supposed to be there to have the best interest in mind of the people. Of course, that's not the case. They are sort of quasi-government entities being protected, being controlled, I should say, by the governments. All right, look at this. In the first 11 months of 2016, official figures show that foreign currency bank deposits owned by Chinese households rose by almost 32%. And why? Propelled by the yuan's recent fall to an 8-year low against the US dollar. Remember that. This is very important because we can see the trends. You need to follow. A lot of people have asked me, when I asked what you need to know, what you want to know, foreign currency exchanges, how to read this, I would say number one importance is monitoring the yuan versus the US dollar. I'll show you more on that in a moment. The rapid rise, almost 4 times the growth rate for the total deposits in the yuan and the other currencies as recorded by the central bank data. The outflows that are currently taking place are partially a result of concerns that the yuan is going to weaken further as U.S. interest rates rise, and because of the lingering concerns about the health of the Chinese economy. So money is fleeing China at this time, but of course it has been doing so for quite some time. You could see all the individuals in China purchasing U.S. real estate, Canadian real estate, in fact real estate all over the world. They're buying land, they're buying businesses and everything else. Money is fleeing, and it is being allowed to flee at this time. It isn't something that is going on, sort of under the table. It's being allowed to do this. What I would say is that there is, this is multifaceted. There's different reasons why this is happening. And of course, underlying all of that is a currency war. You have to understand that. A lot of the buying that's taking place is done by Chinese-owned, perhaps indirectly, owned corporations and entities. So this is something that I would say is happening intentionally, and something that is really being overlooked. Right away, let's just have a little fun here for a moment. Look at this face. It really, really looks like he's a ghost. Anyway, if Soros is still sitting on his China short made earlier in 2016, he's going to get rewarded more handsomely. Next year, the Chinese yuan is going to 7. So it's saying that it's down 6.5% year to date, and essentially going towards 7 to the US dollar. Since the government opened its capital accounts and has been promoting yuan internationalization of the yuan and trade, more yuan have been flying out of the country than dollars coming in and converting into them. Chinese corporations and individuals are taking their money and investing abroad in everything from real estate to foreign mutual funds. This is something that has made it possible for exports to be more attractive. This has always happened. It's just the way it is. In fact, we saw that taking place very, very clearly with what happened with Mexico a few years ago. Now, they purposely devalued in order to be more attractive, and it worked. It's just the way it goes. Let's look at this. Doing business the Chinese way, Facebook develops a censorship tool. I just wanted to mention the fact that business in China is booming. Facebook wants to get in on that, and they have done so by actually creating a censorship tool which has allowed them to get back into the Chinese market. Corporations from the US want to get in on China. China is buying corporations in the US, so it's going vice versa. And then something that I wanted to show you, if you go to Google Finance, they have a very interesting feature which allows you to compare different currencies. What you're seeing here, it might be hard to see depending on your screen that you're looking on this right now. The red line is showing you the Chinese yuan, and that is versus the US dollar. And you can see that it has been an 8.8% decline over the past 5 years. Then you look at it, the blue line, Chinese currency versus the Canadian currency. And you can see that it has increased 17%. So when you measure the two of them against each other, Chinese versus US, it looks to be in one direction. But then look at that in a different direction, Chinese versus the Canadian currency, and you see a whole different picture. So remember that currencies are traded against each other. That is absolutely essential. Use this as a tool in your investigation into the markets. Very important tool here. I wanted to mention that it is something that is essential. Just very quickly, Saudi Arabia, we had the whole 9/11 thing that the involvement of Saudi Arabia in 9/11, they pass a law that basically says, look, you can actually sue them. Saudi Arabia is now lobbying the US government saying, look. Don't worry about it, okay? Don't do that. That's not cool, man. Don't allow this to happen. We're cool, right? We're cool. That's basically what's happening at this time, to put it simply. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. If you love Janet Yellen, then give me a thumbs down. If you find it oh so wonderful, find her oh so wonderful, give me a thumbs down. If you're scared of Janet Yellen's face in this image, give me a thumbs up. Last but not least, if you found the video informative, I know you will find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. I've got diagrams, I've got charts that make this very complicated subject so easy to understand. You can flip through the book if you go over to Amazon, where they have a look inside feature that allows you to flip through the pages of the book and see if you like it. Thumbs down for Janet Yellen.